You know, every offseason brings a lot of hype, a lot of big promises, and plenty of reasons to believe this could finally be the year. But as fans, we've been through this enough times to know that talk is cheap. What really matters is whether this team actually fixed the problems that kept showing up last season. There are a couple of areas that simply had to improve, and the front office made some interesting moves to address them. So today, let's break it all down and see if the Vikings are really in a better position heading into the new season, or if we're about to see the same story play out all over again. Before we jump in, do me a favor. Smash that like button if you're riding with the Vikings this season, and let me know down in the comments. SKOL! That's all I need to see. Let's see how many true Vikings fans are watching today. Something is quietly taking shape inside the Minnesota Vikings organization, and if everything goes according to plan, this season could look completely different from what fans experienced a year ago. But before anyone starts talking about playoff expectations or division titles, there are two major questions that have to be answered first. The Vikings knew exactly where they failed, and throughout the offseason, they made very specific moves aimed at fixing those weaknesses. The real question now is whether those changes are enough. Looking back at last season, the biggest problems weren't difficult to identify. According to the discussion, Minnesota struggled in two critical offensive areas: quarterback play and the running game. While there are always smaller issues that can be debated on defense, particularly against the run or along the interior defensive line, the overall belief is that Brian Flores has that side of the football in much better shape. The offense, however, had glaring flaws that simply could not continue if the Vikings wanted to compete at a higher level. The running game has become one of the most frustrating storylines during Kevin O'Connell's tenure. Even in successful seasons, Minnesota has consistently failed to establish itself as a dangerous rushing team. Back in 2022, despite winning 13 games, the Vikings ranked just 27th in the NFL, averaging only 97 rushing yards per game. That statistic alone raises eyebrows because it's incredibly uncommon for a team with that many victories to rank so low on the ground. Things became even worse during the difficult 2023 campaign after Kirk Cousins suffered his Achilles injury. The offense completely lost its balance, and the rushing attack dropped to only 91.4 yards per game, ranking 29th in the league. More recently, even when the production climbed to around 108 rushing yards per contest, Minnesota still finished just 19th in the NFL. Those numbers simply don't reflect the kind of offensive identity that championship-caliber teams usually possess. Even more concerning was the inability to consistently rely on the running game despite having a young quarterback situation that clearly could have benefited from additional support. Instead of taking pressure off the passing attack, the Vikings continued struggling to generate consistent production on the ground. But perhaps the biggest off-season move to address this issue wasn't a running back at all. It wasn't an offensive lineman either. According to the discussion, the most significant addition may actually be Frank Smith. Smith arrives with an impressive reputation as one of the NFL's most respected run game specialists. His recent work with the Miami Dolphins earned praise from Mike McDaniel, who repeatedly credited Smith for helping build one of the league's stronger rushing attacks despite Miami facing challenges in other areas. His coaching experience also includes stops with the Chargers, Raiders, Bears, and Saints, giving him a broad background that now becomes a valuable asset for Minnesota. The expectation is clear. Kevin O'Connell has already proven himself capable of designing one of the league's better passing offenses. His creativity through the air has rarely been questioned. The missing piece has always been creating the same level of consistency in the running game. Bringing Frank Smith into the building as assistant head coach could provide exactly the perspective O'Connell has been missing. Interestingly, the transcript argues that the problem has never been a lack of talent at running back. Jordan Mason is highlighted as a player who quietly produced an efficient season, averaging 4.8 yards per carry, while scoring 6 touchdowns and finishing just short of 800 rushing yards. Aaron Jones also receives praise, particularly for passing the eye test, with his overall impact viewed as stronger than the raw statistics might suggest. Beyond contributing through the air with nearly 200 receiving yards, Jones continued to show effectiveness whenever he touched the football. The offensive line, however, tells a different story. Health became a constant obstacle throughout the season. Christian Darrisaw moved in and out of the lineup. Donovan Jackson missed time. Ryan Kelly dealt with concussion issues for much of the year. Even Brian O'Neill wasn't available every week. The result was constant instability across the offensive front, especially along the interior, where consistency at center and guard became almost impossible to establish. That instability naturally affected the running game. It's difficult to build rhythm when the players responsible for opening rushing lanes are constantly changing. Yet despite those challenges, the efficiency numbers weren't disastrous. The Vikings averaged roughly 4.5 yards per carry, scored 15 rushing touchdowns, and accumulated approximately 1,800 rushing yards over the course of the season. The issue wasn't necessarily efficiency, it was commitment. The discussion repeatedly points toward Kevin O'Connell's willingness, or lack thereof, to stay committed to running the football. Short yardage situations became a recurring point of frustration. Rather than consistently trusting the ground game in obvious running situations, Minnesota often leaned toward passing, despite having success whenever they actually chose to run. That tendency prevented the offense from developing the physical identity that many of the league's top teams have embraced. And there may be another factor that changes everything this season. Mobile quarterbacks have transformed some of the NFL's most dangerous rushing attacks. Whether it's Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia or Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, the quarterback's ability to threaten defenses with his legs changes the math before the ball is even snapped. Defenses must account for an additional runner, creating opportunities that traditional pocket passers simply cannot generate. If Minnesota can combine a healthier offensive line, Frank Smith's influence, improved personnel, and a quarterback capable of adding mobility to the offense, the running game could finally become the complementary weapon that has been missing throughout Kevin O'Connell's tenure. But fixing the rushing attack is only half of the story. The much bigger question, and perhaps the one that will define the Vikings' entire season, is waiting at quarterback. What do you think? Is improving the running game enough to completely change the Vikings' offense? Or does everything still depend on solving the quarterback position? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've made it all the way to the end, I want to hear from you. Do you believe the Vikings have finally done enough this offseason to solve their biggest problems? Or do you think there are still major questions that could hold this team back? Drop your prediction in the comments below. I read every single one, and your opinion could be featured in an upcoming video. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more exclusive Vikings news, in-depth analysis, and the latest updates all season long, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, and as always, SKOL Vikings.